what is actually the role of work in the 21st century, and what should it be going forward? Let's use that as a starting point.
Sure. Well, I think everybody's talking about the future of work these days, but all the conversation that I'm in is about who does the work, where is the work done. Very few people are talking about what is the work, what should it be, to your question.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe there's going to be a profound shift in the nature of work. I'm going to generalize, but I would say certainly in all large organizations around the world, work consists of tightly specified tasks that are highly standardized. They're done in exactly the same efficient way throughout the organization, and tightly integrated tasks.
Yes.
And I believe that if that kind of work can actually be done much better by machines, by AI, by robots, we humans should not be doing that kind of work. And so I believe the technology is going to take that work from us. And I say good riddance, because it now frees up the capability for humans to be humans and to do a very different kind of work. The way I describe it, the work of the future is to address unseen problems and opportunities to create more value. Wherever you are in the organization, looking around, seeing the opportunities and problems, and not just seeing them, but acting on them to create more value. And I think that's going to lead to enormous value creation and help all humans to be humans again.
Absolutely. And it's a great definition of what we call unbossing, Thomas, isn't it?
It is a wonderful definition. And John, let me jump right into it. Let's now imagine we made it. We transferred all that boring stuff you just described to AI. And so, John, we have freed up all the people from this boring stuff, and now they are supposed to do the creative, fun stuff you also just described, which cannot be done in AI. Now comes the question, John. In which organizational structure are they, these freed up people, which are still there in the company and are still there in the economy, in which organizational structure and culture are they supposed to do this creative stuff?
Well, it's a very different organization and culture than the one we have in most large organizations today. Again, excuse me, I oversimplify perhaps, but I think all large organizations around the world today are driven by a model of what I call scalable efficiency. The key to success is to become more and more efficient at scale, do things faster and cheaper. That's the key to success.
Like a machine.
Like a machine. And unfortunately, fortunately, I believe that actually that model is becoming less and less efficient because the way we've approached it is to do these tightly specified tasks, and when something unexpected happens and nobody knows what to do. I believe that the model of the future that will help drive this new form of work is what I call scalable learning, where the focus of the organization and institution is to help everyone learn faster in creating more value for the company and for themselves. And I think that I would hasten to say, when I talk about learning, most people, most executives say, oh, we do learning. We have training programs. We take workers
Yes.
we put them in the training program, they learn, and then
that's exactly what they say.
Yeah. And I'm talking about a very different form of learning. That's sharing existing knowledge. I believe the most powerful and necessary form of learning in this changing world is learning in the form of creating new knowledge, knowledge that did not exist before. And that does not occur in the training room or classroom. It occurs in the workplace as you're confronting unexpected situations and learning how to create value in addressing them. And that's, I think, a very different form of learning than most large organizations today are familiar with.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, if we agree that we are going to evolve to a workplace where humans can actually become humans, there's one thing that humans need to overcome, which is maybe the one thing that makes all humans human, which is the fear for the unknown, the fear for this big shift. Can you share with us your thoughts on whether it's you understand the fear that people have when they look
Just
for the
lost you there.
future?
Sorry.
Hmm?
I did not hear the question. You went silent there.
Okay. So what
No,
is
there's
fear?
something wrong with the voice.
John, can you hear me well?
I can hear you, yes.
Nick is asking about one of the biggest human emotions, which is fear. Fear
Yes.
of the unknown. And Nick was asking for this brave new world you are describing. And I think many people would sign up immediately when listening to this podcast for this brave new world. However, there is this human element of fear. Leaders have fear of chaos. Employees have fear of suddenly having a responsibility which they never had in the past because they had a job description and were a cog in the machine. So how to overcome this fear, John?
Well, that's the focus of my new book, The Journey Beyond Fear. That it requires a whole book to answer that question, at least in my view. But no, I think I'll start by saying that actually, while fear has always been with us at one level, fear of the unknown, as you say, I believe fear is intensifying around the world. And it's driven by this big shift that I've done research on, the way the global economy is changing. One of the ways it's changing is intensifying competition for all of us as individuals and as companies on a global scale. And then accelerating pace of change, more and more things changing and things you thought you could count on no longer there. And then extreme events coming in out of nowhere to disrupt our best laid plans. There I mentioned pandemic. So there's a lot of things, I call it mounting performance pressure, that is intensifying fear of everyone around the world. And so I think that that's a critical factor to consider in the business world, is how to deal with that fear. First of all, it's acknowledging it, recognizing it, because I believe we live in cultures where expressing fear is a sign of weakness. You don't want to express fear because that means you're a weakling. So we actually express fear often in other emotions. I think a lot of the anger that we're hearing around the world, if you go underneath, is actually driven by fear. But anger is a strong emotion. That's a good emotion. Let's be more angry.
A respected emotion.
Yes, exactly. So first of all, it's acknowledging the fear, recognizing, yes, we have fear. It's understandable. It's not unreasonable, but it's very limiting. And we need to find ways to cultivate emotions that will help us to move beyond the fear and have much more impact that's meaningful to us. But that's the journey.
Indeed. Can you hear me back, guys?
Yes, now
I
I
Yeah.
hear
can
you.
hear
I
you.
hear you,
Okay.
Nick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we obviously agree 100%. And again, that's why one of our most single important questions we ask always in the beginning when we start working with our customers is like, okay, where lie your uncertainties and fears as a leader when you look towards the change you want to go through with your organization? And yeah, then you actually see how difficult, or rather how conditioned we are to striving to be the fearless leader, the one who knows all the answers, um the strong one. So and I think because we are so conditioned to be that way, we are also very skilled at suppressing our fears and not showing them. So I'm curious, what is your advice to those leaders? What would be your advice be? Is it as simple as, guys, show your vulnerability, talk about your fears, or does it go deeper than that?
No, ultimately it is talking about vulnerability, showing fear, but you know, one piece of advice I have that I think can help leaders to start that process, that journey, is to ask really powerful questions. You know, imagine what could we accomplish if we could answer this question. And so it indicates lack of, and then indicating I don't have an answer as a leader and I need help. So it starts to, first of all, inspire people that, wow, that's a really interesting question. If we could come up with an answer, amazing things would happen. This is exciting. So it builds excitement. But then it also communicates that, number one, questions are not only good, but they're necessary, they're important. And admitting you don't have answers and asking for help is important, because you're going to learn a lot faster if you bring other people together rather than just trying to do it all yourself or pretending you have an answer.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that just that shift could be very helpful to communicating to an organization a different kind of culture and an approach to learning. I mean, again, it starts to trigger that scalable learning that I think is going to be critical for organizations.
Yeah, and at the same time, I mean, maybe it's because we are so passionate about this entire movement that we attract people who think likewise. But there's so many people talking about this topic, sharing research on this topic, giving advice on this topic, and at the same time, I want to say 90% of organizations today, well, they're not even thinking about changing. Or is that so? How do you see that evolution? Are we like in the beginning of the exponential curve where we are moving fast but we don't notice it yet? Or
no, we're not moving anywhere fast enough. You know, I've become a strong proponent of an approach to strategy that I call zoom out, zoom in, that I think can be very helpful in addressing that issue of lack of a sense of what's happening and the change. The zoom out, zoom in, it's originally I came to it because I was working with some of the most successful technology companies in Silicon Valley, and they pursued this kind of approach to strategy. But zoom out focuses on 10 to 20 years. And on that horizon, the question for the leadership is, what is our market or industry going to look like 10 to 20 years from now? And what's the big opportunity emerging in that world 10 to 20 years from now that would completely dwarf anything we've accomplished in the past? So it focuses on the future or distant future, but then the zoom in is a very different horizon. It's 6 to 12 months. And in that horizon, the question is, what are the 2 or 3 initiatives that we could pursue today in the next 6 to 12 months that would have the greatest impact in accelerating our movement towards that big opportunity we've seen in the future? And I think it has many benefits to it, this approach, but one key benefit is, again, in addressing fear, because a key issue in addressing fear is encouraging people to look out into the future and see opportunities, not threats, but opportunities. What's a really big opportunity that could change us in a fundamental way for the better? And then it's focusing on short-term action, because again, if you're feeling fear, many people are just going to dismiss that long-term opportunity and say, well, that's a fantasy. We just have to focus on what we're doing today. But if you can start to show real tangible progress in the short term towards that opportunity, now you start to build even more excitement. Oh my goodness, this is real. This is happening. How can I be part of it? Mm-hmm. And so I think it's a very powerful way to help people to address the fear and start to take action together.
It is absolutely. Maybe a practical question. In that specific example, how much time did the leadership team take to do this zoom in, zoom out exercise?
You know, it varies. I mean, it obviously hinges on the people and the emotional state that they're in. But my experience is it takes it typically around 2 to 3 months with some workshops, you know, day-long workshops each month. But you want to give people time to process and absorb what they've encountered in each of the workshops. So you space it out. But I think that's in my experience can really help people to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's not even to me, it's not even a question. The thing is that we notice that in that culture of scaling efficiency, each leader and individual also tries to scale the efficiency of his own agenda. And so they try to do these exercises maybe in 2 hours this week and then another hour next week. And then they try to shift it in their, we're so focused on results, outcome way of working. And so that was why I asked the practical question in that specific example, how much time they took, because indeed it requires that you create space, right? To be creative, to divert your ideas on the future. And so it's not a workshop you go into with the intent, like we have to have a final product when this first workshop is over. It's a process. It's a process.
Exactly. Yeah.
I also was reading about your 3 pillars.
Yes.
Can you explain what the 3 pillars are and how that came about?
Well, again, to do that requires a whole book, which is why I wrote my book. It's the core framework for the journey beyond fear are these 3 pillars. And they're easy to state at a high level. The 3 pillars are narratives, passion, and platforms. But the challenge is that I have a very different definition of each of those than most people do. So just understanding what I mean by it and why I think it's important. And I came to these 3 pillars partly through my own journey. The book is partly a personal memoir. So I made the journey beyond fear, and I've had a lot of lessons learned and sharing those lessons. But then it's also based on research that I've done on various aspects of the way the world is changing and what's going to be required to be successful in this world. So
yeah, what I want to check is, Thomas, when you hear narrative and passion, I think you are excited.
I am, John. In fact, I just made a video on Instagram and LinkedIn about exactly that point, because John, let's be honest, Nick and I, we are dealing with teams at clients more often than I would have thought. Teams who are highly capable, highly skilled, and are really expert in their tasks. And still, John, these teams of highly skilled persons are reaching mediocre or merely okay results because this magic ingredient of passion is missing. And that is my diagnosis. And I have been extremely successful, or better to say, my teams have been extremely successful when this magic ingredient was there. And of course, yeah, would be very curious if you agree there with me.
Yeah, so I came to this by doing research on areas where I see sustained extreme performance improvement and see what I can learn from those areas. And some of them are in business, but many of them are distant from business. One of my key areas for exploration was extreme sports, big wave surfing, extreme skiing. And one of the things I found, despite the diversity of all those areas, was the participants had a very specific form of passion. And again, I'm cautious because I know from experience that when I say the word passion, everyone in the room has a different definition for passion. from each other and from me.
Hmm.
So I'm talking about a specific form of passion that I call the passion of the explorer. And it has three elements to it. One is people who have this passion are committed to having increasing impact in a domain. They are excited about the opportunity to have increasing impact in a particular area. That leads to excitement when they're confronted by unexpected challenges. They're excited when they see those challenges because they see it as an opportunity to have more impact. And then they also are driven to connect with each other. When they confront those challenges, their first reaction is, who else can I connect with who can help me get to a better answer faster? So I think my belief is, to your point, we are going to need this passion in the workforce. The challenge, and I did a survey of the US workforce, the entire US workforce, at most 14% of US workers have this kind of passion about their work.
Please say that number again. Please say it again, John.
14%, 14%, 86% do not have this.
Do
And
not have it.
Right. And the challenge is that most companies don't even seek to measure it. They all focus on worker engagement. And I will also say that in my experience, most companies are hostile to this kind of passion. Passionate people ask too many questions. They take
because they want to control it. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
right.
Because it's risky.
Right. The fear is, they're going to do something that's unexpected and fail. And so, no, I can't have those people in my organization. So it's a surprise to me that there are even 14% that still have that passion.
Well,
John, I love this. Nick, can we do this podcast 5 hours instead of 30, 45 minutes?
Well, I just to give you an example, John, of how what kind of an ambassador Thomas is for passion in the workplace. Our customers sometimes ask him to tone it down a bit, because, as you say, they are indeed a little bit afraid, or they don't believe it, or so it is indeed risky and some kind of threat, maybe even.
A threat, absolutely. No, I think again, I'm generalizing, but in most large organizations, passion is very suspect, and the attempt is to get rid of that passion.
Mm-hmm.
So,
exactly, to eliminate all this risky stuff.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Now, John, Nick, sorry for that. I know it will take a couple of minutes, but you are in California, John, and very obviously, you know the story of Tesla. Everybody knows the story of Tesla. And I guess you have also seen what Elon Musk called the production hell, which was the launch of the production of Model 3. Now, my theory is, and I would be curious if you agree with me. I was not there, but I know what production hell is. And I know it very well. And I know what overwhelming things how overwhelming a situation can be when you are faced with 500 challenges and when you are trying to analyze it and trying to structure it. And now comes my theory, John. A highly capable intellectual team without passion would not have overcome these challenges. This is my deep conviction. I don't know the people. I have seen that as many others as a spectator from outside, but I believe that only passion and the passion for their purpose led them to success in that production hell. And I don't know if you have an opinion on it, John, on that specific case, but I would be very curious to hear it.
I'm not close enough to Tesla to have an informed opinion. I mean, from the outside looking in, I do agree that passion is a key to helping people to get not excited about the challenges, but also to be motivated to come together and work together to find answers to it and find ways to make progress. And And again, they're excited about it. They're not just doing it because they were told to do it. No, they can't be stopped. They're going to do this regardless of whatever anybody's telling them. This is exciting.
But now comes an interesting one, Thomas and John, because in preparation of this conversation, I also saw a video of yours where someone in the audience asks you the question like, aren't all successful CEOs not trusting their people? I don't know if you remember the video. So it was a guy in the audience, and you were talking about trust, and he says, "But wait a minute. I mean, whether it's Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, are they not famous for not trusting their people?" So you have passion on the one side, but we say, yeah, if you want to thrive passion in your organization, you need to be able to let go a little bit of control and let the uncertainty go in. So that also requires a level of trust, right?
Yes, for sure. And I think it varies. Again, there's many different successful CEOs, and I think the most successful ones have been ones that really trusted their workers to accomplish something. I think one of the challenges is that in Silicon Valley, I will comment because I have a lot of experience here. You know, some of the most successful entrepreneurial companies, when they get to a certain size, they are told by their investors they need to get adult supervision. And what is meant by that is they need to bring in experienced executives who have run large organizations and can implement all the processes required to scale this business successfully. And they revert
John,
to the scalable efficiency model.
I have to think of Apple when John Scully came in from PepsiCo.
Virtually every one of the large organizations, the large entrepreneurial organizations, have had this issue, and I view it as really crushing a lot of the passion that was driving the success of the organization in the early days. And
yeah, but that's actually an interesting point. Is it possible once you start scaling to find the unique balance between passion and standardization and whatever is needed in terms of systems and processes to
What did you say? Just I'm just waiting until you mention utter the word control, Nick.
Yeah, and control,
standardization.
Yeah. I'm placing myself in the shoes of our listeners who are saying, yeah, guys, but come on. I mean, if you go a multinational purely on passion, John, what are you telling us? That's very naive. No wonder only a small amount of organizations are doing this.
Yeah, I mean, again, to me, we are in a world that's more rapidly changing with unexpected events, more pressure. If we don't have that passion, we will never succeed. And the challenge is, I think, yes, there are still some standardized tasks, but again, my message to executives is as quickly as possible, get technology to take that over. That's what technology is for, standardized tasks. Keep the humans focused on passion and excitement about addressing the unseen problems and opportunities to create more value. And that ultimately it's about creating more and more value, not just becoming more efficient in the sense of faster and cheaper, because that's a diminishing returns proposition. Efficiency over time becomes harder and harder because, you know, there's less to cut off. So anyway, I think that it's a challenge. I agree that most executives are very suspect of passion. So they're going to say, wait a minute, we just want to be efficient, and let's just be efficient. Or we can have passion over in the research labs or innovation centers. We'll put an innovation center in Silicon. The number of innovation labs here in Silicon Valley from large companies, and I view them as PR initiatives, right? They can now say, we're innovative. We have an innovation lab in Silicon Valley. But the message to the people in those labs is, we're going to give you some money and some people, just don't ever come back. because if you come back, we're going to kill you. And they got the message. They are here in Silicon Valley doing all kinds of fun things, innovation. So anyway.
Thomas, I think John is almost ready for
John. Nick, if it's up to me, we could go on for another 3 hours. But I get the message. I get the memo, Nick.
Okay.
John, imagine I am an executive of a rather traditional company, John, and say it's an automobile manufacturer, but not Tesla, one of the others. And I adore your message. I have listened to this podcast now. I get it, John. I also have read your book, by the way, and I'm a believer. So very generally, I tell you, I want to do that. I want to go on that journey to which you inspired me to go. And now my question comes, John. What is the biggest mistake I can do despite my genuine passion for it and despite all my good intentions?
Well, there's so many mistakes that could be made. The biggest mistake in my experience is senior leaders who get real excitement and passion about the opportunity want to change everything all at once. And it's what I call the top-down, big bang approach to change. Everything's going to change. We're going to make everybody passionate. We're going to change everything. One of my key messages to executives is never, ever underestimate the power of the immune system and the antibodies that exist in every large organization and will mobilize at the slightest indication of a desire to change to crush it. And those people are driven by fear. They're well-intentioned. They're doing what they think is best for the company. But my advice is to executives, that's the mistake. My advice is start on the edge. When you get passionate about an opportunity and the ability to drive fundamental change in the organization, find an edge to your current company that you could scale very, very rapidly to the point where it becomes the new core of your company. It's not just a diversification effort or an innovation effort. It will be the new core of your business. Start the change and the transformation there and bring together a small team of people who have that passion, passion. One of my key messages is recruit for passion, not for skills. Many executives, when they talk about some new initiative, they will look at resumes and see, do they have the right credentials? Do they have the right job experience? No, the key question is, do they have the passion? Are they really excited about the opportunity? Because if they have the passion, they will either develop the skills that are needed or find people with the skills that are needed. But the key is the excitement and willingness to go forward.
John, it's amazing. And one thing, you should see yourself, John. Do you see yourself when you are talking about
it? Not really.
You really should see yourself and talk about passion, John. Talk about passion.
Well, I definitely have passion. Definitely have a passion. Hopefully that comes through. But
yeah, it shows.
sure.
It shows both verbally and non-verbally, and also Thomas. A big mistake we unfortunately see happening also with our customers, right? Making
the big bang approach, of course. Tomorrow,
this town hall, we're gonna change everything, and then I like the words John uses, like the antibodies with good intentions. So the immune system that start to get activated to crush the change. So I like that wording. Yeah, it catches.
John, you have to know it's the job of Nick to take all the quotes out. So I think we are now at the count of 20 quotes. We will all publish them on LinkedIn, on Instagram. I'm connected with you on LinkedIn and on Instagram. So be ready for a tornado or a tsunami of John Hagel quotes.
Boy, okay.
Indeed. We also bring all the podcast guests and customers together in a WhatsApp group, but I will follow up. We'll follow up this podcast with a mail so that you can get in touch with them as well and inspire each other. We will promote your book obviously as well when we release the podcast. And yeah, is there any final reflection you like to leave us with before we check out?
Wow. I guess one final reflection is just this notion that many people interpret me as saying we need to get rid of the fear. I don't believe we are going to get rid of the fear. I believe there are reasons for fear, and the fear is going to remain with us. The big question is, how can we cultivate emotions like the passion of the explorer that will help us to move in spite of the fear? And, I use the example again of big wave surfers. When they're surfing out to ride the next big wave, they are afraid. They know not only that they could have fallen off the board, but many people have died trying to ride those waves. So they are naturally afraid, but they're still paddling. They still want to ride that wave. They're excited about it. And so to me, that's the key.
Love it. That means the expression fearless doesn't make much sense, right?
No, I'd like to meet a fearless person. Just
Okay, John.
Fearless to me is clueless. I mean, if you're fearless, you just don't understand how the world is changing.
You're unconscious.
Good luck.
Thank you so much for this morning conversation for you. We really wish you a fantastic day. We will follow this up once the podcast is released. You will get notices of that. We will, as I said, we will promote your book and so on. And if there's anything else we can do for you, we're getting a lot of buzz in Europe. So if there's anything we can do back for you, please do not hesitate to contact or ask us. Thomas, any reflections from your side?
All right. Yeah, only, John, prepare for the tsunami of quotes. Brace yourself.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Have a great day, John. Bye-bye.
Nick, you stay in, right?
Yeah, I stay in.
And why do you stay in, Nick? Bye, John.
Bye.
Why do you,